Some people say that love is beautiful. Some people say it is painful. I say it is like eating ice cream too fast. You enjoy it, and then you get brain freeze. But still, you want more. Yes, that is how my story begins. My name is Anna. I am 24. I live in a small town, and my life is not very exciting. Every morning I drink coffee that is too bitter. I go to work in a bookstore that smells like old paper. And in the evening, I walk home alone. People say books can give you adventure, but I wanted something more than paper and dust. One rainy Tuesday, when the sky was gray and my umbrella was broken again, I'm not lucky with umbrellas, I met him. His name was Daniel. Of course, at that moment I didn't know his name. He was just a tall man who opened the door of the bookstore and looked like he carried all the sadness of the world in his eyes. Romantic, right? Or maybe he just had a headache. I couldn't tell. "Do you have books about ships?" he asked, his voice quiet but serious. "Yes," I said, "but they are in the history section, next to the books that nobody reads." He smiled, and I thought, oh no, not the smile. Smiles are dangerous. Smiles can make you forget that your hair is wet, your shoes are dirty, and your heart is supposed to be safe. He looked around like he didn't really care about ships, and maybe he didn't. Maybe he came into the bookstore only because of the rain. But something in his eyes made me curious, and curiosity is always the first mistake in love stories. We talked a little. I told him where to find the books. He pretended to listen. Then he bought one old book about sea voyages that was too heavy for no reason. People never buy that book. I think he just wanted to talk more, and yes, I wanted that too. When he left, he said, "See you." And that was it. 2 simple words. But for me, it was like the opening line of a drama. See you, not goodbye, not thank you, just a promise. Or maybe I was already imagining too much. I usually do. That night I could not sleep. My room was quiet. The rain outside was soft, and the world was the same, but inside me something had changed. I didn't even know this man's story. Maybe he had a girlfriend. Maybe he was just passing through town. Maybe he would never come back. But my heart, stupid heart, was already writing chapters about him. The next day I told myself, "Anna, forget it. You are not in a movie. You are not Juliet, and he is not Romeo. Life is boring, not tragic poetry. But of course, life loves irony." Because the very next day Daniel came back. He didn't buy a book this time. He just stood near the counter, looked at me, and said, "Do you like coffee?" Now you have to understand, this is the most dangerous question in the universe. If you say no, you look strange. If you say yes, it is a date. If you say sometimes, it is just confusing. I said yes, because I like coffee, and because my stupid heart already said yes before my mouth did. So we went to the little cafe across the street. It was nothing special. Too small, too noisy, the chairs always shaking. But sitting there with him felt like, I don't know, like the world finally decided to play a joke on me. A good one, at least for now. He told me his name was Daniel. He was new in town. He didn't say much more, but I didn't care. I just watched him talk, watched his hands move, watched his eyes when he smiled, and I thought, maybe my life will not be boring anymore. Maybe this is the start of something beautiful, or tragic, or both. Of course I was right, but not in the way I expected. When I woke up the next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and asked a very important question. Anna, are you crazy? The answer was yes, absolutely yes. I had coffee with a stranger, and now my heart was acting like it won the lottery. At work, I tried to read a book, but every page looked like his face. That was annoying because the book was about cats. And I don't think Daniel looked like a cat. At least I hoped not. The bell on the bookstore door rang, and guess what? Of course it was him. Because when you decide to forget someone, life makes sure they stand right in front of you. "Hello, Anna," he said, like we were old friends. My heart almost exploded, but I pretended to be calm. I nodded like, "Yes, this happens every day." Tall, sad man walks into my shop. He didn't ask for a book this time. He just looked at me for a moment and then said, "Do you want to take a walk?" Now, walking with a stranger is usually a bad idea, but walking with a handsome stranger who buys useless books? That feels like destiny or stupidity. Sometimes they look the same. So we walked. The rain had stopped and the streets were shiny like glass. He walked slowly, like he had all the time in the world. I liked that. Most people rush. He didn't. We passed the park. We passed the old cinema that never worked. We passed Mrs. Green's bakery, where the smell of bread was so strong that I almost forgot I was supposed to look romantic, not hungry. Finally, we sat on a bench. He looked at the sky, and I looked at him. Then he said very quietly, "I came here to escape." Escape? From what? From who? From taxes? From aliens? From an ex-girlfriend with good memory? I didn't know, but the way he said it, serious and soft, made me feel like he was carrying something heavy inside. I wanted to ask more, but he shook his head. "Not today," he said. "One day I'll tell you." So I just nodded. I didn't push, because maybe, just maybe, if I stayed patient, he would trust me. And if he trusted me, maybe I could be more than the girl who sells books nobody reads. When the sun went down, he walked me home, and that moment was too sweet, like candy that is so good it almost hurts your teeth. He stopped in front of my door and smiled. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. Again those words, see you, not goodbye, not good night, just see you. That night I couldn't sleep again. My pillow was soft, my blanket was warm, but my brain was doing gymnastics. Who was Daniel? What was he escaping from? Why did he come to my boring little town? And the most dangerous question of all, what if he left again? I told myself, "Anna, be careful. You don't know him. You don't know his story. He could be a hero. He could be a disaster. Or maybe both." But deep inside, I already knew the truth. I was falling. And when you fall, you don't think about the ground. You only think about the air. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. That never happens. Usually, I fight with my alarm like it's my worst enemy. But that day, I opened my eyes and thought only one thing. Will I see him today? At the bookstore, I tried to look normal. You know, casual. Not like a girl waiting for a mysterious man to appear and change her destiny. I put my hair up, then down, then up again. I arranged books that didn't need arranging. I smiled at customers who didn't care. Inside, I was screaming. Outside, I was calm bookstore lady. And then, just like a scene from a movie, the doorbell rang. Daniel walked in. His jacket was dark, his eyes even darker. And yes, my heart fell on the floor again. "Coffee?" he asked. No hello, no small talk, just the magic word. I wanted to say, "No, I'm working, I'm busy, I'm professional." Instead, I said, "Yes, give me 5 minutes." We went to the same little cafe. This time the chairs were even worse, but I didn't care. I would have sat on a pile of rocks if it meant sitting across from him. He didn't talk much. He stirred his coffee, stared at the table, then finally said, "I shouldn't be here." Now, if a man says that, you usually answer, "Okay, goodbye." But of course I didn't. I leaned closer, like an idiot, and asked, "Why not?" He looked at me for a long time, like he was deciding if I was safe, Then he whispered, "Because I made a mistake. A big one. And people don't forgive mistakes like that dramatic, right?" He could have said, "Because I forgot to pay my rent," or "because I lost my socks." But no, it had to sound like something from a dark novel. And of course, my heart loved it. "I don't need to know now," I said softly. "Tell me when you're ready." He looked at me, surprised. Maybe he expected questions. Maybe he expected judgment. Instead, I gave him patience. And patience sometimes is louder than words. When we left the cafe, the sky was already black. Streetlights made everything look golden and unreal. We walked slowly, our steps almost in rhythm. In front of my door, he stopped again. The same place as yesterday. The same silence. But this time, he took my hand. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was just his hand holding mine, warm and strong. And it was enough to make my stupid heart start writing another 100 chapters. "Anna," he said, his voice low, "I don't know what will happen, but I promise I'll try not to hurt you." The funniest part? When someone says, "I'll try not to hurt you," it usually means you are already doomed. But in that moment, under the yellow light, with his hand around mine, I believed him. I wanted to believe. After he left, I stood by the door for a long time. My neighbors probably thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But love is like that. It makes smart people act stupid, and stupid people act even worse. That night, I dreamed of the sea, waves crashing, wind blowing, and Daniel standing there, looking at me with the same sad eyes. I didn't know what it meant. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But one thing was clear. My quiet little life was gone, and something bigger, something darker, sweeter, and much more dangerous was just beginning. The next few days felt like a dream. Not the kind of dream where you fly or win $1 million. No, it was the quiet dream, the soft one, where the world suddenly looks brighter for no logical reason. Daniel came to the bookstore almost every day. Sometimes he bought a book, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he just sat in the corner, reading a page and pretending to care. But I knew the truth. He was there for me. And yes, my heart danced every time. We drank more coffee together. We walked through the park, through the streets, even by the river that smelled like old socks. It didn't matter. If he was there, even the dirty river looked beautiful. He wasn't very talkative. Most people fill the silence with useless words. Daniel didn't. He liked silence. At first it felt strange, but then I realized silence with him wasn't empty. It was full of something I couldn't name, but of course dreams don't last forever. They crack. They always crack. One evening, after closing the bookstore, I found him waiting outside. His face was pale, his eyes darker than usual. Something was wrong. "Anna," he said, "I need to tell you something." My stomach twisted. Words that begin like that are never good. We walked again, of course, always walking, like moving helped him think. Finally, he stopped under an old street lamp and said, "I didn't come to this town by chance. I was running away. I wanted to say yes. I already guessed that, Sherlock." But instead I just nodded. "I made mistakes," he continued, his voice heavy. "I worked with people I shouldn't have. I trusted the wrong ones, and now I had to leave. Start again." My heart squeezed. He wasn't telling me everything, that was clear, but I also knew he was telling me enough to scare me a little. "Are you in danger?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Not today. Not today." What kind of answer was that? A normal man says yes or no. Daniel gave me poetry when I wanted facts. And yet, part of me didn't want the facts. Facts could destroy the dream. "I don't care about your past," I said. "Everyone makes mistakes." He shook his head. You don't understand, Anna. My mistakes don't stay in the past. They follow me. We stood there, silence pressing around us. I wanted to hold him, but I also wanted to run away. Instead, I stayed. Of course I stayed. That's what stupid hearts do. Later that night, we sat on a bench near the river. The water moved slowly, like time itself was lazy. Daniel told me small pieces of his story. A job that went wrong, friends who were not friends, promises broken. He didn't give details, but enough to paint a picture. A man carrying a heavy shadow. And me? I just listened. Because sometimes love is not about answers. It's about being there when the other person is brave enough to speak. Then he looked at me, suddenly serious. You should stay away from me. The words hit like a stone. Stay away? After all this? After coffee, walks, smiles, promises? Do you want me to? I asked quietly. He closed his eyes, pain in his face. No, that's the problem. It was so dramatic I almost laughed. Almost. But I didn't. Because it wasn't funny. It was real. We didn't talk much after that. He walked me home, slower than usual, like every step was heavy. At my door, he kissed my hand instead of holding it. A simple kiss, but it felt like goodbye. And my chest hurt, but I pretended not to notice. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about his words. Stay away, number. That's the problem. What was I supposed to do? Forget him? Impossible. My heart already belonged to him, even if my brain screamed that it was stupid. In the silence of my room, I made a choice. A dangerous one. I would stay. No matter what shadows followed him, no matter what mistakes haunted him, I would stay. Maybe it was brave. Maybe it was foolish. Probably both. But love doesn't care about logic. It only cares about beating, and my heart was beating too loud to ignore. I didn't know then that the real storm hadn't even started. But storms are funny. They don't knock on the door politely. They break windows. They turn the world upside down. And soon Daniel's storm would crash into my little town, into my little life, and nothing would be the same again. That night, just before I finally closed my eyes, I thought I heard something outside my window. A car engine, too quiet, waiting, or maybe it was only my imagination. I told myself I was tired, that the world outside was calm. But deep inside, I knew the truth. The storm Daniel carried was already here. It was only a matter of time before it reached me too. The next morning, the world looked normal. Too normal. The sun was bright, the birds were loud, and the sky was so blue it almost felt fake. But inside me, nothing felt normal at all. At the bookstore, I couldn't focus. Every sound made me jump. The bell on the door, the turning of a page, even the coffee machine in the corner. I kept looking at the window, half expecting Daniel to appear. Half expecting, I didn't know what. When he finally came, he looked tired. His hair was messy. His eyes had dark circles under them. But he still smiled. And stupid me, I melted again. You look awful, I said. You look beautiful, he answered. Unfair. Completely unfair. How do you argue with that? We sat in the corner, pretending to read, but not really reading. After a while, he whispered, Did you notice anything strange last night? My stomach turned cold. Strange how? He leaned closer, like someone outside, watching. I wanted to say no, but then I remembered the car engine, that quiet sound outside my window. My lips pressed together. Maybe I heard something. His jaw tightened. He didn't say anything for a long moment, and then, they found me. The words hung in the air like a shadow. Who were they? His mysterious past? Old enemies? The tax office? Okay, probably not the tax office. What does that mean? I asked. It means I shouldn't stay here. Not anymore. The room spun for a second. Not stay? Leave already? But my heart had just begun to feel alive. You can't just leave, I whispered. My voice broke. Daniel's eyes softened, but his face stayed serious. Anna, I told you from the beginning. I made mistakes. They don't forgive. If I stay, you're in danger too. Danger. The word felt heavy in my chest. Until now, his story had been dramatic, but still far away, like something from a book. Now it was real. I tried to be brave. Then let me help you. He almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. Help me? Anna, you sell books about cats. These people don't read about cats. They don't read at all. They destroy. Ouch. That was insulting and terrifying at the same time. But I didn't give up. Still, you're not alone anymore. For the first time, his eyes shone, not with sadness, but with something like hope. He took my hand across the table. You don't know how much that means to me. The cafe around us was noisy. The chairs wobbled. The coffee was bitter. But in that moment, it felt like the most important place in the world. That night, he walked me home again. We didn't talk much. The silence between us was heavy, but not empty. Before I went inside, he stopped me. Anna, he said, if something happens, if I disappear, promise me you'll keep living. Promise me you won't waste your life waiting for me. I stared at him, shocked. That's a terrible thing to say. I need to hear you promise, he insisted. And like a fool, I said it. Fine. I promise. But of course we both knew it was a lie. If he disappeared, I would wait. I would always wait. Later that night, I couldn't sleep again. The quiet outside didn't feel safe anymore. Every car that passed made me sit up in bed. Every shadow outside the window looked like danger. Around midnight, I heard it again. The sound of a car engine. Too still, too patient. I pulled back the curtain just a little. A black car was parked across the street. The lights were off. Inside, I couldn't see anyone. But I knew. Someone was watching. My heart raced. I thought about calling Daniel, but what could he do? What could I do? I sat on the bed holding my pillow like a shield, waiting for the sound to stop. When I finally fell asleep, the car was still there. And in my dreams, Daniel was standing in the middle of a storm, reaching out for me, while shadows closed in around him. The black car didn't leave. For 3 nights, it sat across the street like a dark question I didn't want to answer. Daniel stopped coming to the bookstore. I waited every day, pretending to work, pretending to smile at customers. Inside, I was breaking. On the 4th night, he finally appeared. Not at the cafe, not at the shop, at my door. His face was pale, his voice tired. Anna, I have to go. The next morning, the car was gone too. The street looked normal again, like nothing had happened. Only my heart knew the truth. Everything had changed. I went back to the bookstore, to the books about cats and ships and people who always find their happy ending. But I knew mine was different. Some people say love is forever. Some people say it is pain. For me, love was Daniel, beautiful, dangerous, and gone. And yet every evening, when the sky grows dark, I still hear his words in my head. See you. Not goodbye, never goodbye. Just a promise I still wait for, even in my dreams.